NFL playoffs kick off tomorrow. It's almost here, but there's still a little bit more time for some playoff best ball drafts. And with the games about to start, we've got a little better idea of how some of these players look. These players project the way they might fit together on our builds based on how many fantasy points we expect them to score. And on many of these sites, and if you particularly like the Lions or the Chiefs or even the Bills, you might need some players that fit only for a specific cause, some cheat codes, if you will, to playoff best ball. And they're probably not who you think. Let's get into them and let's draft a couple teams. Let's do it.
3, 2, 1. Liftoff.
Yeah, perfect. Updog is on his way home. Our non-American best ball sicko. What's up? Hello, everyone. Hopefully you are having a wonderful Friday. It's snowed another 6 inches or something here. I'm trying to recover from a little flu action. This is flu game weekend. This is Jordan best ball playoff best ball flu game. I just maxed the DraftKings $20 and gonna rip a bunch more on drafters. I did kind of forego a lot of underdog in order to make that stuff happen, but I think especially the things that we'll talk a little bit here today are probably a little bit better for drafters and DraftKings. DraftKings, of course, most tournaments it is tougher to advance than most tournaments on underdog. There are some underdog teams where it's 1 of 6. And there are some DraftKings teams, I believe, DraftKings tournaments, I believe, a very rare one where it's not 1 out of 6, but generally speaking, only 1 out of 6 advance. It's a little tougher on DraftKings. And so I really have been a big proponent of in any form of playoff basketball, but especially in the NFL, where there's buys, right? It's very different from the NBA, the NHL. Everybody plays in round 1. In NFL playoff best ball, right, we have the 2 best teams. They get the 1 seeds. They are the 2 most likely teams, generally speaking, to, we have the rare Titans year where they get the 1 seed, those kinds of things. But generally speaking, because they're the 1 seed, they have the easiest path to make it to the Super Bowl. However, despite the fact that that's the most likely matchup, it's very hard to get. Doesn't have to be those 2 teams, either one, right? Either the Detroit Lions or the Kansas City Chiefs, especially the really good players from those teams. It's very difficult to get those guys through. Shoot, it's difficult. Like I mentioned, the Buffalo Bills, right, in the intro. It's really difficult to get the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen's great, but like James Cook's fine. But like James Cook is not as good as Saquon, is not as good. Well, and we'll look at some of that here in a second. I'll kind of show you some of the data behind like how many points you're behind when you draft some of these guys, right? Like there's not a Bills player besides Josh Allen that projects anything noteworthy at all. Like they're almost assuredly they're definitely not giving you an edge. And so that's very important for this opening weekend, right? If I want to get Lions and Chiefs and such through, but it's also important for round 2. Round 3 is when it gets a little like just get me teams that get to the semifinals, right? If I got Lions, I'm counting on those guys anyways. But even in round 1 and especially in round 2, so now the other teams get their Lions firepower and they get their Chiefs firepower, maybe, right, into there, or they advanced with teams that didn't have those bye week players. Washington wins and Buffalo wins, and they got a bunch of Washington guys and Josh Allen and Derrick Henry advanced, right? Whatever. How do I compete with those teams, not only this weekend in round 1, but how do I compete with those teams in round 2 as well? And as fun as it is to just go down the ADP list and click the next guy in your Super Bowl matchup, a lot of the times it's overkill and you're actually hurting yourself because the only part of this game is not the Super Bowl matchups, right? You kind of like how many points you score in each round is relevant. We're not very good at predicting who that is, but we are good at predicting who has the best chances to do some of this stuff. Like when Gabe Davis did it, Gabe Davis was not a last round pick, right? A lot of the times we'll draft these one-offs, these advance rate boosters, and it's always, right, it's Cortland Sutton, and it's George Pickens, and it's it's on the teams that we expect to lose. But we can also, especially this year, kind of have our cake and eat it too. And you'll see some of this. Some of the best projected plays can also get us 2 games in there. So how do you get the Lions or the Chiefs or your crappy Keon Coleman, Mac Hollins, Ty Johnson, Bills teams? How do you get those teams into round 3 and hopefully into round 4? Well, 2 out of these 4 teams are going to make the second round and guaranteed to get 2 games, right? One of the Chargers and the Texans. So there's Nico and Mixon and Stroud and Schultz, and then Lad McConkey and QJ and Dobbins and Herbert, all pretty valuable. Washington and Tampa Bay, right? Bucky, Evans, Baker, Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz. There's a bunch of guys who look really, really good this week and any game they play from a fantasy perspective. And they go at, maybe not the very end, but they do go in the middle of drafts. And you can add those guys to your Jahmyr Gibbs, to your Bills stack where I need some wide receiver help because I can't beat 5 other teams if I need both Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper to outscore all the good wide receivers that are playing this weekend, right? It's like just not going to it's not that it can't happen. We made this joke a lot in the Discord, which, of course, if you're not a member of the Spike Week Discord, it is free and there is a link in the description. We kind of joke a lot about people saying, well, it's possible, right? This could happen. And the problem with that is technically, of course, anything, right? As Kevin Garnett famously said, anything is possible, but it's not like anything can happen. That doesn't mean we want to draft for it. And so there's ways to have the anything is possible while also actually upping your chances at making it to the final, at advancing out of round 1, advancing out of round 2, and you're not hurting your upside. It's difficult to toe that line because you don't want to fall too much into the early couple round projection plays, but you also don't want to fall all the way into the opposite side, right? You're just not going to get there with you're in rounds 1 and 2. You're playing against really, really good fantasy assets, and you're going to war with Amari Cooper and Ty Johnson and Dawson Knox and Noah Gray, right? And even like Dallas Goedert is not very good. Khalil Shakir, right? Like we have a Hollywood, DeAndre Hopkins, Kareem Hunt. It's tough to win in the first 2 rounds, not just the first round, but the second round as well. When I have my team is projected to score like 40 points less that with 6 guys, I'm projected to score. Like there are DraftKings teams you'll see drafted. There are drafters teams you'll see drafted in round 1 that are out projected by 50, 40. Like you can build teams that actually project awesome. And it's not always the early picks. You can build teams that project really well in round 1. And then, if they win a game, right? If Terry moves on, if Bucky moves on, if Lad moves on, these guys are some of the highest projected wide receivers in all of the playoffs. And so when you're drafting the lower projected wide receivers in all of the playoffs, you're out projected by a ton. You need not just anything is possible. You need a stone cold miracle to outscore those guys. So what we really want to do is, like I said, toe that line. How can we still build the teams that I know that the finals is what matters? I know I need to win. I know I need to get there and I need to win. But how can I toe this line to where I'm not hoping that Keon Coleman scores 35 points 2 weeks in a row when Keon Coleman hasn't scored 10 points 2 weeks in a row? How do I toe that line? How do I Jaden Reed, is going to save my bacon with the first good game he's had against one of the best defenses in the NFL. It's like, I don't want to bet on those kinds of things. Let's find that middle ground to try and do it. Yeah, we'll turn the KG meme into our own little soundbite. That is for sure. All right, so quickly, here's what we'll do. I'm just going to pull up some projections and just so you can see the data and you can kind of see what I'm talking about, and then think about where those guys have gone in your drafts, how you've put them to practice, put them into practice, and all that kind of stuff. Because I think just the data is going to tell it a little bit better even than I am. So looking at, I think I have DraftKings up. So looking at DraftKings fantasy point projections. This is a genuinely hilarious question, really quickly, Pepper Tony says, how often would you draft a Lions offensive lineman if you were allowed? I would draft Dan Skipper in the last round when I needed the last. If I could play Dan Skipper at tight end, I would draft him 100%. He has a better shot to score a touchdown than Brock Wright does. And you've probably all been there, right? You get to the end, you built Lions and whoever for the Super Bowl. I run into if I don't get Noah Gray, right? If I don't have Kelsey or Laporta, and I don't get Noah Gray on that crazy double buy Super Bowl I just built, I'm like, a lot of times I just forego, right? I'm not taking Peyton Hendershot, and I'm like, what are the odds that Brock Wright really helps this team even in the Super Bowl? He's projected, he's going to project for basically 0 points. And I go back and forth. Sometimes I take him and sometimes I don't take him. It kind of depends, right? It's a little vibesy. It depends on when I look at my team and I'm like, gosh, I could use some help, at wide receiver or something. And if it feels actually pretty good, we'll toss Brock Wright on there. But I would take Dan Skipper over Brock Wright for sure. Like he's a better bet to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. If he were a tight end, of course, that would be nice. Maybe not a running back or something. So let's look just at quarterback first. Let me make sure I get over to fantasy points. So we're sorted by fantasy points. So you take Josh Allen 101, right? Just think about how this weekend, or also remember, a lot of people speak about, and I do sometimes too, like the advancement part of it as only this week, but it's next week is very important as well, because we're gonna introduce the 2 bye teams, and a lot of guys, right? You'll lose some players, of course. Teams will lose some players, but you're not going to be running into as much, unless the Bills lose, unless the Ravens lose, unless the Eagles lose. Like you're not going to be running into that many totally dead teams. They're still going to have, right? If Saquon has a big game, guess who you're going to see a bunch of? If Josh Allen has a big game, guess who you're going to see a bunch of? Now, you could run into Daniels of the world, the Sam Darnolds of the world if they lose. But just for frame of reference on like how many points we should be expecting these guys to score. These are median projections, right? We know that Josh Allen has a much higher ceiling. But like again, the Broncos defense is not some slam dunk spot for Josh Allen. He's going to have a good game. It's a playoff game. He's Josh Allen. It's what he does. He didn't light up the New England Patriots, right? He's had plenty of games this year where he's not scoring 50. So okay, Josh Allen has a good game. Jaden Daniels projects basically the same. If you see here, let me zoom a little. If you like, there's really no difference. And we know Jaden Daniels has a huge ceiling too, not the same level as Josh Allen, but has a monster ceiling. Why can't he run for 100 yards and a touchdown and throw for 3 against the Bucs? The Bucs defense, huge ceiling, right? And so then there's Lamar. Jalen Hurts is actually 4th. So Jalen Hurts, you take Jalen Hurts in the first round, and you're like, cool, I'm good at quarterback. I mean, I'm not taking the second quarterback with Jalen Hurts. I'm good at quarterback. Now I've banked on, right? I start to tell the story. How does this team succeed? Well, Jalen Hurts has a bunch of big games. Well, that's fair, but he also projects as the 4th highest scoring quarterback just this week. We don't have Goff and Mahomes. He probably projects a little tick over them anyway. But he could next week again be competing with Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson, and now Darnold, or now Goff and Mahomes. Could be Darnold, right? Could be Herbert again here. Like you're not gapping the field. Like when you have Josh Allen 101, that's what you're hoping for. With and Lamar, you're hoping for that big game, but you're probably not gapping the field at quarterback. So think about that, right? All right, I've maybe gained a little bit at quarterback. Like even on down to Bo Nix. Bo Nix projects for 18 points. I think after Bo Nix, like after, you could argue after Baker, but after Bo Nix is when it does start to get a little hairy. Stafford just doesn't have the juice at the quarterback position. Jordan Love, just doesn't have the juice. Russ, yikes, right? So, but everybody's going to have good quarterbacks, no matter who you are. No matter if you take a bye week, even if you take a bye week quarterback this week, everybody's got good quarterbacks. So just keeping that in mind for when we put together our teams, and again next week too, right? So for the next 2 weeks, the quarterbacks are often you're making that play because of the long-term thing. So it's not separating. So in terms of cheat codes, right, there isn't one. There is no cheat code quarterback. At running back, the this is where things start to get fun. The highest projected scoring, this is in PPR, most relevant because I've been playing on DraftKings and on Drafters. I understand underdog is different than this. But in full PPR, Bucky Irving projects just like Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. And I know that sounds crazy. He didn't score as many points over the course of the season, right? Saquon Barkley, the RB1, right? Derrick Henry, what a smash all season is all we've been talking about. But the fact that Bucky wasn't scoring as many points in the first month of the season is irrelevant to right now. Rachaad White did not touch the ball in a must-win game in Week 18. Rachaad White is gone. He's not part of the offense anymore. When they need to win, it's Bucky time. It's Bucky's backfield. He's in one of the best matchups against a Washington run defense that is very susceptible. It's not the Saquon and Henry. I draft Saquon and Henry. Okay, I'm in. They're going to have awesome games. But I'm saying Bucky Irving, if you start to think about how to put together your team, you want to build that Lions-Chiefs team. You want to build just a Jahmyr Gibbs team. You want to know who's a really goddamn good person to put in there? Bucky Irving. And not just because he projects so well this weekend. They can win. They have a home game. They're at home in the first round of the playoffs against Washington. I kind of like Washington in that game. But if you get 2 games out of middle round Bucky Irving, right? He passes the baton to Jahmyr Gibbs or David Montgomery, or you pair him with Derrick Henry, right? And you get multiple. Derrick Henry goes to the Super Bowl. You still get Bucky for 2 games. Bucky Irving is the guy for me at running back. And if I had to have a fallback option in terms of a cheat code, this guy is not a cheat code. But we have pretty quickly forgot about Joe Mixon in this whole discussion. Kyren Williams goes multiple rounds ahead of Joe Mixon, despite the fact that Joe Mixon projects for more fantasy points this weekend. And I know because it feels like Kyren is just a lock, right? He gets all of the touches. And I also know that it's partly because we don't believe in the Texans, and I don't either. They stink. But they can beat the Chargers. Again, a home team in the playoffs. Definitely no weather concerns. Joe Mixon is going to get plenty of work in this game. It's not a major volume issue. You're not that concerned about that. I don't imagine Dameon Pierce is going to play as much as maybe he was. And so we have Joe Mixon, who projects not that different from Derrick Henry. Now, again, my expectation is that if I'm betting on someone to exceed these projections, as you would see, from a ceiling perspective and definitely a floor, right? The median for Joe Mixon is very different than his floor versus ceiling compared to Derrick Henry. But again, you're getting these guys who this isn't, and I draft some of these guys too that we'll get to, but this isn't taking, Jalen Warren, Jaleel McLaughlin, where they're not going to win. Is it possible? Yes. But when we come to like nobody, if you think that the Steelers are going to win and you're right about that, props, like good, go for it. But no one actually thinks that they have a shot at winning this game other than, some BS stuff that we're talking about. Like this team has pretty much collapsed. So anyway, we have a situation where it's not that. It's not the Broncos. It's not the Packers. It's not these totally overmatched teams in the first round where it's definitely just a one-game thing. And there's reasons to draft the one-game thing. But you can get elite running back production. The only running back that we're bringing into the second in the mix in the second round that's elite is Jahmyr Gibbs. Who cares about Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, right? So you're going to get a top, so let's just say Gibbs is right there at the top with these other guys. Joe Mixon Bucky is still going to be a top 5 running back, and Joe Mixon is also going to be, top 5, top 6 running back. Kyren would be similar as well, right? So if you prefer, if you like Kyren and want and like the Rams, more than the market, but the field has priced up Kyren, and Bucky is a little cheaper, and Mixon is cheaper. And so we have these situations where, again, how do I find this middle ground of still give me, that Jalen Hurts example? Jalen Hurts is not an edge for the first 2 rounds in terms of fantasy scoring. But the Eagles are awesome. The Eagles can make the Super Bowl, and I don't have to worry about drafting another quarterback because he's not on the bye. I can stack him easily with AJ Brown or Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. Cool. Tough to get him with Saquon, but occasionally I could get him with Saquon. So I can do the Eagles thing. But I'm not really gaining points here. Now let's say I do Eagles Chiefs. Now you're really not gaining points. Again, not just in round 1, but in round 2. Because even when we bring the Chiefs into play, they don't project well. They don't have a running back worth a shit for fantasy, not for ceiling games. Travis Kelce is fine, but he's expensive. I like Xavier Worthy quite a bit, but that's it. Like Hollywood, DeAndre Hopkins, the Chiefs are long-term Chiefs plays. That's why we're drafting them, because they're long-term. The Chiefs are going to go to the Super Bowl again, right? So or at a minimum, they're going to go to the conference championship game. So that's why I'm taking them, because when my roster thins out, they come into play. But my roster is not thin, and I don't want it to be thin in the second round. I want the high producing players. So I got these Eagles, right? And I start backfilling with Chiefs. And it's like, oh shit, my team still stinks. Look at that. I don't have anybody that's going to score any fantasy points. The perfect ways are to dip in and out, right? So maybe you don't take Kelce. You take that Bucky, right? And then you come back for Goddard. But then you don't take, maybe you did take Worthy, right? I'm just making something up. But then you don't take Hollywood, right? Let's come get Terry McLaurin, who we'll talk about in just a second. Or let's come get Joe Mixon now, right? Because I can still get 2 games. And then look, when the Eagles still make the Super Bowl, poof, right? Now we pass that baton over to the Eagles, and then we pass it to the Chiefs, right? After 2 weeks. That's kind of how I'm thinking about it. That's the running back stuff. Wide receivers, there's a couple more as well. Puka, again, similar to Kyron, except I think it's really warranted for Puka. Puka is the most expensive, like what I would consider one-off wide receiver. It's not that the Rams can't win. Of course they can. It's not that the Rams can't make a run. Sure, of course they can. It's just that they have tougher odds to make a run, and they also have the toughest matchup in round 1, for it's the other games are a little more, and it's technically a coin flip, but I mean, Minnesota could have been the 1 seed. They were very close to getting the 1 seed, and they have to play that team, and now they just lost home field advantage, right? They moved the game to Arizona. So it's a little trickier spot, but Puka is, he projects 2 points better than every wide receiver. Again, PPR. This is PPR scoring. He's awesome. Like nothing. If you want to use Puka in this, right? You talk about a cheat code. It's just Puka can get 2 games. Technically, Puka could get 3. That's why he's priced a little bit higher. I use him some in this light. But as we move on down the list, I think you'll see some of these other guys. And then you'll also see, right? Why did I say that Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown stack or whatever is like not that crazy powerful? Well, AJ Brown projects, right, as the 4th or 5th. Him and Nico Collins project the same. Right? So think about what your wide receiver room looks like. And again, Nico can play 2 games. If you're going to war with second round AJ Brown, right? 1-2 turn, you take Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. All right. Somebody just replicated your production the 5th and 6th, right? They took Bucky and Nico, or Ladd, who's next on this list. They took Bucky and Nico and Jaden Daniels. They have a higher projection than you. I'm just right. They took Jaden Daniels, Bucky, Nico Collins. Their team projects for more points than yours does with Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown, whatever. You're a dog for not just this week, but for next week. You're going to be a dog to that team, generally speaking, right? So again, how do I dip in and out of these things? It doesn't mean I don't want Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. It doesn't mean I don't want to build, Eagles big time stacks. There's some other guys on here we can, dig into. I mean, Mike Evans, say what you want about Marshawn Lattimore, who's going to play this week. I'm excited to watch the old Mike Evans, Marshawn Lattimore fist fight that will assuredly happen this weekend. But he does project near the top of wide receivers. Again, Ladd comes after Nico and then Terry McLaurin. So we have this, well, I'll call this little pocket right here. We'll leave Sutton off for just a second. But Nico Collins, Ladd McConkey, and Terry McLaurin are the 3 kind of sweet spots at wide receiver, the Bucky Irvings and the Joe Mixons of wide receiver to me, that I want to use those guys to my advantage, because again, not only can I use them in round 1 to backfill, right? I took Devonta Smith. Look, the dude's barely a top 10 wide receiver this weekend, right? Devonta Smith on the Eagles. second round pick, 2-3 turn pick in playoff best ball, projects, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's the wide receiver 10 from a projection standpoint this week. So these guys are just a lot better fantasy plays for this week and possibly next week than some of these guys who go a lot higher. So I want to use those guys. Again, I'm not shoving all my chips in, but especially on drafters where we'll see like every week counts the same. And if I can get 2 weeks out of these guys and then they pass the baton, it's huge. It's really, really huge. I think it's really huge on DraftKings as well. Underdog, it's a little bit different because you advance 2 out of 6 and you only start 5 guys and it's half PPR. So it's very touchdown driven. But I'm trying to think about these kind of things, right? How do I, and it's a little vibesy, right? As you're going through your team. I mean, when you start with a bunch of Lions or Chiefs, like I'm in the hole. I need some of this. And too often it's so easy to keep, and I shouldn't call it a trap, but it's easy to keep falling into the trap of, all right, I took Gibbs and Amon-Ra and Goff fell to me. It's like, now Laporta fell to me. Well, yeah, of course Laporta fell to you. You have all the Lions. Nobody else is incentivized to take the Lions, right? And then somebody else lets a Chief fall. You're like, oh, damn, they let Worthy fall too. Well, scoop him. And you just locked yourself out of any chance of advancing in round one. It's hard. It's hard to, like, you see, especially use the draft hacker or whatever, which of course link in the description to use the Spike Week tools. And it's like, lighting up on your screen, like, hey, dum-dum, here's another Lion, right? This correlates. And then you take your first 5 picks are all the buys, or 4 of them are Lions. It's not that you can't dig out. I've tried it. I think occasionally you'll run into a team that feels okay, but you're still, you probably had to build quite frankly, a shitty team. You do have a lot of, right? You got a lot of Cortland Sutton. You need another QJ game, which again, QJ down here is not bad, right? Like, to my George Pickens point earlier, Quinn Johnson projects better than George Pickens. So we would have thought, and I have a bunch of dead George Pickens. Dead is not the right word. From before we knew that the seeding was what it is, and before we knew that the Steelers forgot how to play football, I was taking a good clip of George Pickens for this reason, and because he was potentially in that, either that Houston LAC game was theoretically going to be Pittsburgh, so those teams are cooked. But right, Cortland, if you want the one game one-off, Cortland Sutton projects for 3 more points than George Pickens does in PPR scoring. Again, this is a median projection of 3 points higher than somebody else is a huge gap. I mean, he projects for 2 more points than 2 more points than what? Jordan Addison, 1.5. He projects for a point higher than Devonta Smith. Right? So like, these guys have, I think we sometimes, myself included, we fall into this like robotic thing of saying like, well, I know how to solve playoff best ball. I just draft X amount of players from this team and then make sure I got a Super Bowl, right? So I got 4 from somebody in the NFC, and then I need to, give me 2, whatever, in the AFC. And that's definitely a great like starting foundation. But it's not the only, right? We determine this game by fantasy points scored. Not just, if you just want to bet futures, just bet futures, right? You're playing playoff best ball. There's a best ball element to it. So you do need some form of fantasy scoring. And so if I'm going to take a bunch of guys who project way worse earlier, and I think this is very unique to this year, to be clear. I think in the past, what we've seen a lot of is ADPs a lot of the time sorted by the, kind of more so team based. And a lot of the best teams did have the best position players, right? The Chiefs had Tyreek and Kelsey, boom, first rounders, right? Then you got Mahomes. The Niners, CMC, right? Debo, Ayuk, Purdy, Kittle, boom. Like, I know all the good guys are like, you took the best players on the best teams and you had the best fantasy assets, right? Stephon Diggs on the Bills, whatever. You took the good teams, Lamar, Andrews, etc. You were good, right? But that it's funny because that's not true this year. The Buffalo Bills have one good fantasy asset, 1.5. James Cook is a good fantasy asset in a vacuum. He's not good compared to the other superstar running backs. Josh Allen is obviously an awesome fantasy asset, but they don't have a good wide receiver or tight end fantasy asset. I mean, Dalton Kincaid's price is out of control. Why does he go so high other than he has Buffalo tied to his name? He doesn't score fantasy points, right? It's like Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins are fine because they're Kansas City Chiefs. They don't score fantasy points. So you can't be counting on them to help you at any point really until the Super Bowl. And again, probably the third round because teams have been weeded out and such. And I understand the idea of having more players on a team, than the maximum or the minimum, right? If you need 5 or 6 guys to be on your team, 6 on DraftKings to be in the final, having more gives you more outs to winning for sure. But you know what gives you more outs to winning than anything is advancing more teams. And now I'm turning into an advance rate bro, but it's again that I would love to have as many guys as I possibly can from, again, from the Bills or whatever. But I can't forego the fantasy points part of fantasy football. Like I said, if we want to play the futures game, then let's just go bet some bets and futures. You can get better odds on that than you're going to get down. If that outcome hits, you're still probably going to lose money in playoff basketball. You don't got to deal with all the drama. You want to bet Bills Eagles, just bet Bills Eagles. In the Super Bowl and bet them every step of the way or whatever in the playoffs. But it's that balancing act. I want to have all these perfectly constructed teams. The problem is that with the Chiefs and with the Bills and with the Lions having a bye and the Eagles are like okay, fantasy projection wise, like the Ravens don't have Zay now. What does that mean? Is that good? Is that good for us? Is that bad for us? I don't know. But there's just weird projection stuff going on so I don't think we can just take maybe history and just say, this is how I draft playoff baseball, right? We've solved this game. We draft 4-2-2-2 or 4-3-3-3, or 5-3-2, whatever. That's what we do. And we move on. There's nuance to the game. And so I felt like I had to learn. I would draft a bunch of teams this year, and when I wasn't using some of these air quotes cheat code guys, I was like, "This team is awful." Like, and again, not just for round one, sometimes not just for round two, but I'm like, okay, so the Bills play the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I'm counting on them in round 3, and my running back is gonna be Kenny Gainwell. And my wide receiver 2 is Keon Coleman. And my flex is Mac Hollins. Like, I might still lose. Like, I might get those 2 teams to round 3, not just round 2. So I somehow navigated that team, right? Keon Coleman does have the huge 30. I somehow navigated that team into round 3, and I still might be a dog. It's like, I don't want to be a dog when I get to round 3. I want to have, right? I got Goff, Gibbs, Amon-Ra, and Henry and Andrews on the other side. I'm like, we're fucking cooking, buddy. Like, I'm good because I got really, really good high scoring pieces there. It's been a tricky one. This year is very unique. I think we say that, we overuse that all the time, but I think it is. So, like I mentioned, Nico, Ladd, and Terry kind of being the Bucky Irvings of the wide receiver position. Cortland Sutton more of, Cortland Sutton and QJ, I think are our 2 kind of like, QJ is like kind of almost in a tier of his own, really. QJ, Jalen McMillan, I would say, are like in their own tier, clearly on the teams that could play 2 games. Can definitely win this weekend. May very easily win. I don't know, but projects decently well. Right? Jordan Addison doesn't project that much better than QJ than Jalen McMillan. And so I guess then Jalen McMillan, it's a decent gap, but you get the point. There's a lot of stuff here, right? And so just quickly to scroll down, I do have I run into trouble on some DraftKings teams when I start getting into the Marvin Mims. But there's the Green Bay guys, right? But look how many points you're down. Like, the further we go down this list, the further, like, remember, that's how many, everybody else has these other guys. The moment you're like, it's fine, right? This is the anything is possible. It's fine. I just need George Pickens and Marvin Mims to have huge games this weekend. It's fine, right? It can happen. It can happen. It's like, sure, your opponents aren't taking zeros. Your opponents have Puka and JJ and Mike Evans and AJ Brown and Nico and Ladd and Terry and right? It's like you got to outscore them. Oh, and you waited on running. Your RB1 is Aaron Jones, who doesn't project well, right? Your RB1 is Aaron Jones. What is Aaron? Where is Aaron Jones? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The RB9 on the week. He's a tier break, right? Down to now, God forbid your starting running back is B Rob or Najee or Warren or whatever. I mean, these guys barely even project for 10 PPR points. That's a medium projection. They may not hit that. You're really getting thin at these spots. And like I said, so you paired those guys with Kareem Hunt. Is like Kareem Hunt next week going to come save you in round 2, even if you get your B Rob RB1 team through? It's like combining this fact that there's a story that can be told that this happens, and is it based in any reality? Because probability matters, right? And so I just keep going, and I want to keep bouncing back and forth between that. Like I want to, you want to make sure you build at the end of the day, right? It's like the week 17 is all that matters thing. It's like we want to build the team that's going to win in the Super Bowl. But once I've achieved that goal, I built that team that can win in the Super Bowl. I got to remember there's a lot to this. How do I navigate my way there? And sometimes, right, that can require drafting guys who are round, you're not betting on the Chiefs to make the Super Bowl, but maybe you need a little Chiefs life in round 2 and 3. So maybe Worthy or Hollywood or Hunt or somebody like that can help on that team. Same thing, like take JMO. You're not building on the Lions, but he gives you some round 2 and round 3 juice that you might need. There's just a lot of ways to dip in and out of some of these things. So anyway, you see, this is the funny thing. Marvin Mims feels too low, and I've drafted more Marvin Mims than I care to admit. I draft a lot of double buy teams, so we run into this issue. But we have to remember, it was 2 games. Like Marvin Mims, like let's not get out of our skis. He had 5 targets, and he just scored 20, but he had 5 targets. So, and this is the Buffalo Bills. So we'll see. I'm excited to see what he does, and I'm hopeful for him. But it's still Sutton first in that offense, and then Marvin Mims, and you're just going to need extra volume, right? But they're still going to throw it to Devon Vele and Lil Jordan Humphrey and the running backs and all that kind of stuff. So I just don't want to put too much faith, right, in a singular Bronco having a huge game. Like, not just at 11 points. I need a big game. At the tight end position, there's a couple of quick standouts. TJ Hawkinson actually projects as the tight end 1 overall, and then Mark Andrews. Again, without Zay, I think there's a little bit of, room for debate in all of this, right? These are not infallible projections, and other people are going to have different projections. I just wanted to, it's all going to be close enough, right? Whether we flip the order of some of these, they're all going to be close enough. I would have, you can see it's a 3/100ths of a point difference between Hawkinson and Andrews, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm classifying Mark Andrews as the tight end 1 on the week. But the big thing to note here is there's 4/100ths of a difference between the tight end 1 and Zach Ertz. So for all intents and purposes, Zach Ertz is the tight end 1 in PPR. Again, it's important to note for him, especially in PPR. Zach Ertz, who you probably saw on the thumbnail, is the cheat code at tight end. And again, what team is he on? Washington. Is Washington in our little foursome of teams that can play 2 games? You bet your ass they are. So I can get a tight end in PPR scoring that can save my Kelsey or Laporta team, right? Or get me 2 games, and then in round 3, I'm like, let's just pray to the fantasy gods that now Noah Gray or Dawson Knox or whoever in round 3, I can survive with that crappy tight end because I get lucky in my pods, right? But I can get two games of boosting out of a guy who's going to, so think about this. We're going to get Kelsey and Laporta next week, right? So at worst, Zach Ertz is the tight end 5 overall for a cheap price that you can get on these teams. He's my second highest owned player on DraftKings to Terry McLaurin, because I think using Zach Ertz as Again, not just week 1 advance rate booster, but he unlocks so much that you can do. You know, like, you either want to take Kelsey or Laporta, or you want to pass on those guys and then wait for Noah Gray, or pass on Kincaid, just wait for Dawson Knox on that Bills team. This guy can be, he runs the first leg of the relay and then he hands to those other guys. That's kind of what these cheat codes ultimately are. And I don't want to draft a full team of them, right? I still want to draft a very live Super Bowl team, a team that can win the whole tournament, but these guys can really, really help. This definitely happens. Charles says, people build front to back, right? That's ultimately the issue that you see in all things best ball. And it's not inherently wrong in playoff best ball at all. You want to build around your most important assets, but everybody does the same thing. Again, everybody is hyperbole. If you haven't watched one of these shows, there's plenty of hyperbole when we say everyone or everybody or all the time or every time or whatever. It's an exaggeration, but very, very frequently people just start right. I clicked Jalen Hurts. Okay, Eagles go to the Super Bowl. Next player, I clicked Travis Kelce. Okay, Chiefs go to the Super Bowl. I'm only going to look at Eagles and Chiefs for the next, right? And it's like, it doesn't work that way. Like, you don't have to do that, right? And frankly, you probably shouldn't, because especially on drafters, which we're about to hop in over on drafters, like, you need big games every week, not just the Super Bowl. You could have a full team of both of the Super Bowl. The two teams that make the Super Bowl. I'm gonna hop into the $20 here on drafters, finish this statement, and then we can just actually have a little fun. Just like, I understand the methodology around it, right? And I've done it on Underdog and DraftKings, but on drafters, you need like all the big point scores over the course of the fantasy playoffs. You think they're all going to come from the Baltimore Ravens? They're all going to come from the shitty Buffalo Bills? Like, oh man, the room gave me every Buffalo Bill. It's like, yeah, no shit they did, because you ain't going to score any fantasy points. You can't make up that many in the Super Bowl, right? You want to have guys alive in the Super Bowl, but you can't make up like a 140-point Puka game. Your two Bills wide receivers can't even make that up in the Super Bowl, right? They're not going to score 40 combined in the Super Bowl. So you got to, again, like, figuring out this way to dip in and out of, I know I need to score points, but ultimately I need, what's the Super Bowl type stuff. This is definitely true. As we're about to get in on drafters, perfect segue. Mossy says, I see so many people on drafters drafting like they're playing on Underdog and DraftKings. Like, what I would contend is, I think even on Underdog and DraftKings, this is really exploitable. And like, that's how I always just think about any form of best ball. Is not, I think most people come in and they're like, how can I solve this? Right? What's the right? See most newcomers' questions or whatever, and this is not a slight to anybody. Most people come in and they're like, how many quarterbacks, in regular best ball, how many quarterbacks do I draft? How many running backs do I draft? Right? How do I stack? How do I do week 17? How do I do XYZ? And they're like, they want the rules, right? Everybody wants rules. And in playoff best ball, that's very much how people think there are rules, right? I draft, so I'm going to draft fifth. I draft Jalen Hurts. Eagles go to the Super Bowl. I need all the Eagles. Couple AFC teams. Wash my hands, good. And it's like, that's fine. But when everyone drafts that way, again, exaggerated everyone. But I know, like, the really smart people draft in a certain way. And we don't really worry too much about what the bad drafters do. We just assume the bad drafters are going to be bad. The competent players are all pretty predictable in how they draft. I know that because I'm predictable, or I have been predictable. It doesn't mean I'm a good drafter, but I just mean, like, after drafting thousands and thousands of teams over the years, you start to get into, right? You start to follow your own rules that you've put together. As our good friend Pat Carine always says, like, the brain creates shortcuts. Anytime you can get a shortcut to something, right? And that's kind of the playoff best ball thing, is we start creating these shortcuts and we say, took this guy, here's what I do now. Right? Because you don't want to think about all the million. You're on the clock. You got 30 seconds. You got to think about 10,000 different things at once. No, just give me the next guy up. So I want to take advantage of that. I'm going to build live teams, right? I'm just going to do it a little differently than you do. If you say I can't draft a Terry McLaurin one-off on my Lions team, I'm going to do it because I don't agree. And not only do I not, even if I didn't agree, I would think about it, right? Like, so nobody's doing this, right? And on drafters, I got to beat every one of these teams. So the more times I have something that nobody else has done, right? I got 3 players together that are not together in the rest of the tournament. That's a huge edge. Like, I almost don't care who they are, right? It's like all your rules, all the rules for playoff best ball are great in terms of, if we're playing 50-50s or whatever. But we're not. We're playing a tournament against absolutely everybody else. So I want to build for the stuff that you don't have, right? Like all the good players, nobody drafted XYZ players together. It's like that seems like a good pairing to have, right? No matter how the playoffs shake out. That's funny. Charles says he has one rule and one rule only: snipe players from the drafters with a Spike Week logo. That's smart. Only problem, I think, is that we don't draft a lot of good players. I agree with this. Who Ames says, if Washington Tampa Bay isn't the highest scoring game in week 1, so many of my teams are dead. Yeah, I need, especially after I just gave the. Let's see if I can. I'm gonna take Amon-Ra and let's see if I can feed the Hurts AJB stack to the 6th spot. Oh, did AJ Brown go? No. Okay. See if I can feed the AJ Brown. If not, we'll reassess and it'll be all right. Yeah, I need my Mahomes, my 2 highest owned players on DraftKings, and so generally across all of best ball, Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz, I think followed up by Bucky. And so you see, like I just used those. I have a ton of Lions, and I have a ton of like all the good teams, right? Nice. Let's do Derrick Henry. Oh, I have so much Henry and Amon-Ra. So let's do something a little different. Let's maybe look for our. If I have Amon-Ra, it is true that I don't particularly want to. Let's do James Cook with him for once. A little unique pairing. We can set up Bills, Lions. Goff probably goes here. Even if we don't get Goff, he should take Henry probably. Yeah, and then he'll probably try to get Goff on the bring back. Smart by Maverick there, since these 2 guys have quarterbacks. But I'm rooting for, of course, Jared Goff to come back to me here. But if we go Lions, Bills, Super Bowl, and we don't have the quarterback, it's not really what we're hoping for. We'll build something else in, but I'll also still build in some cheap Bills. If we hit the stone cold nuts with one of these other quarterbacks and we get 3 games, can offset it, right? The Allen drafter, basically can't have Amon-Ra, and then the Allen drafter frequently has James Cook. So if we can do something a little bit funkier here, that offsets the fact that the Josh Allen guy has James Cook a lot, but doesn't have Amon-Ra, right? We're obviously going to assume Amon-Ra goes to the Super Bowl, gets 3 games, and that's kind of a differentiator between Allen and the Amon-Ra team. This definitely happens. Pepper Tony says, I feel like I'm seeing the opposite. People on Underdog and DK drafting like it's a total points contest. Yeah. It's tough. It's tough because sometimes, especially on DraftKings, I felt this pain drafting a million of those teams the last couple days. I said I've been under the weather and wasn't drafting as much the first couple days of the week because I just felt like I was dying. And so now that I've gotten a little bit healthier, I've just been ripping away at the DraftKings one because I really wanted to max that one. Of course, 500K to first is really intriguing, but I thought that there was just an edge in the format. 1 out of 6 only advancing and seeing a lot of the way people have drafted those teams. And I thought, basically, like I said, if the Lions go to the Super Bowl, I could probably build. This is a nice fall for Andrews, though. Yeah, let's just do. We'll get at least 2 games, Andrews. I could build teams on DraftKings better. Kind of doing a lot of what we talked about here today, using the cheat code players to in Laporta on the same team. That's interesting. So here's an interesting one. I could take Shakir and kind of let's do that. Let's try it. So we're only gonna we got to remember now that we're only gonna get 2 games, most likely only gonna get 2 games of Mark Andrews. And we're gonna take all of the normal players that the Allen team has. We're gonna put them on this Amon-Ra team, and we're gonna say Amon-Ra goes completely scorched earth, right? And for 3 weeks, Amon-Ra is the guy you need. Dare I say, the guy you need, and we're gonna take him from that Allen team and see if we can't manufacture a couple of. So I don't want Darnold, but we're probably looking at Daniels, Herbert, etc. So we'll see. Versaire says, "Are you more open to building a no Super Bowl quarterback team on drafters than you would be on?" Definitely. Because what you really need on drafters, and this is gonna, there goes Bucky. That's funny. It's hard to even necessarily put this into the appropriate wording, but the ultimate goal, right, for drafters is to just hit all the spikes. Of course, you need advancing teams to hit all those spikes because, right, the third round spikes and the Super Bowl spikes are players that are playing in the third round in the Super Bowl. But the little minuscule point, you still want to have enough players that you're adding real points to your team, but like the and all that kind of stuff are not that big of a deal. So if I have right now, I do not want Dalton Kincaid, to be totally clear here. Okay, so Bateman, Evans, Worthy. So this is where I definitely need to dip into. You see, I have preferred a lot of Nico. So maybe we'll do Lad so I can set up Herbert. Let's do that. Lad so I can set up Herbert here. And it will play, right? So here's what we'll try to do with this. We'll take Lad, set up Justin Herbert. Chargers upset the Chiefs. So Chargers beat the Texans, then upset the Chiefs in KC. Seems unlikely, but nonetheless, that's what we'll kind of think about building this one for, because obviously I needed a wide receiver because I have Amon-Ra. Quite frankly, I need another wide receiver because I don't want to be counting on Shakir. But we'll get to that one here in just a second. What I would like to do. This team, son of a Ironhead, takes Terry. That's what I really wanted, was Terry. So I don't want to do Nico because I don't want to. I mean, I could just buy 1 week of Nico, but that's not really what I want to do here. So I think I might do David Montgomery because I got 2 weeks of Andrews. I can come back for Knox. I'm gonna do DMont because that'll give me round 3 for flex play, running back, whichever way you would want to put it. But so now I have running back, wide receiver, flex for what is air quotes my Super Bowl. But what I need in order for this to somehow work, right? This is the predicament when you don't get any of the top quarterbacks, and you took a Lion or something like that. Like the easiest pivot is to say, all right, well, now we're just going to do the Vikings, right? Because I didn't get Goff from Mahomes. I didn't get one of the first round quarterbacks. I didn't get Goff from Mahomes. Let's do the Vikings. Like, well, if we're building around the Lions here. So the especially on drafters, the Lions don't make a ton of sense if they're going to lose in round 2. Sure, they could have, right. The Amon-Ra scores 45 in a loss, which he might, quite frankly. I think that's okay. And it's another one where people really don't you dare draft the Lions with a Viking stack. It's like, I don't think that's not something I want to make a big part of my plans. But if we do it a couple times for that scenario, right? Amon-Ra or JMO or whatever, Gibbs does the Gabe Davis of last year. Think about, you're the only one that gets that 40 ball, which is the highest scoring game of the playoffs, and you drafted 1 Lions one-off. Every other team drafted Lions to go to the Super Bowl. So you're the only with that, but you have the teams that go to the Super Bowl. Like, you just dunked on all of those guys, right? Someone will say, well, that still doesn't initially mean he's the most valuable first round pick, and that's true. But there's a scenario in which that works. But again, it's it's a drafter specific thing. And so the same thing with the no quarterback stuff. Sometimes you get backed into certain things. And so with this, like this, the plan is that I will still have I will still have, a potential path to like a Lions Chargers Super Bowl, right? But it's just this guy definitely needs a tight end there next to me. I can feel I can feel the Zach Ertz coming. Let's go ahead and take that away from him. I know you have Mark Andrews, blah blah blah, but I'm giving myself a little extra tight end out. It's not my favorite pick, but we're in this little bit of a dead spot. I was actually just going to scoop Nico if he came back around there. I'm trying to think if I do. I'm going to skip Keon because when I come back for Bills, I got a guy or two later rounds. Daniels goes. So I'm going to do Sutton. There's all my kind of advancement plays, if you will. Right. But Ladd is playing towards my Super Bowl. I could technically get a running back in there, but I'm obviously rooting for a big James Cook game, week 1. And then, we got Shakir in the flex, but technically I can use Andrews in the flex, right? So once I get a quarterback, I got my round 1 lineup put together. James Cook, Ladd, Sutton, Andrews, and then let's just assume it one of Shakir or Ertz in the flex for this team, plus whatever quarterback, ideally Herbert. You fuckers, don't take him. Ideally Herbert, and then that will start to give me I need a little more Chargers and another Bill, specifically a tight end, who you can probably guess. But it starts to put itself together when you think ahead, right? You're like, why? Ertz doesn't necessarily totally fit on this team. I don't have any Tampa, so it'd be nice to have another game of Ertz. And there really wasn't anybody exciting at that spot. And then I kind of already know what my late rounds are looking right. I'm like, okay, I know there's a Buffalo Bill that I'm gonna need to be ready to take. And then I need at least another Charger who I would like for that to be. So you start to run down the list, and you can kind of see how the team starts to build itself together once the puzzle pieces start coming together, but doing it from the back, right? Thinking about it from the back and being like, okay, there's that guy on that team I got to take him in the 9th. I got to take him in the 10th, or just like be getting ready to take certain guys. This is true. Can't believe I drafted 0 Zach Ertz in the regular season. 0. Absolutely stone cold 0 of the dude in the regular season. He's going to be like, I'm going to have a used Kia on him in playoff best ball. It doesn't feel great. I'm not going to lie to you. It doesn't feel great. They're going to put me in a pickle here with this next pick. Just take Dobbins, please. Pickens. He's got a lot. So he's got Daniels and Mahomes. Okay, he's not taking Herbert, so I got to get QJ. I know you could say, look, there's Dobbins. In my opinion, this Dobbins, particularly on so I'm going to Sutton, right? And Shakir is again like a little more of a long-term bet and a way to get some of those Bills points in that potential Super Bowl, right? I'm playing for Chargers, Bills in the conference championship is what I'm hoping for. And so this team is just cooked over here at the 106. See, this is the old it feels cool because you got a lot of Ironhead. It feels cool because you got a lot of oh, he did it to me. What? Oh, shoot. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and kick this. The golf team took Darnold. All right. We're going to pivot around. Time to pivot. Pivot. To what? I don't know. Let's go to. Good God, man. Dalton Schultz it is. Yeah, it's probably going to be Stroud and Knicks. So we've just ruined our Chargers, and we've ruined this team. It was probably ruined to begin with. Yeah, this has not gone well. And it happens. It's playoff best ball for you, right? It happens. It's never fun when it does. Meanwhile, I'm gonna go ahead and hop into one more. We'll do one more of these. If you're not signed up for drafters, I'm sure you've heard me say it before. But two quick things. First is if you have not signed up, your first time depositing on drafters, use promo code SPIKE SPIKE. You'll get 100% deposit bonus up to $100. So, right, deposit $100, they'll give you another 100. So you'll get 200. There's 10 teams, right, into this $20. But they also, if you want to get another free team, whether or not you use promo code SPIKE or not, today only, if you draft 5 into this tournament, the $20 drafters NFL Playoffs Best Ball Championship, if you draft 5 teams into there, they're going to give you a free one tomorrow morning. So that's what I'm going to be doing here the next little bit, making sure that I draft those teams. But I'm going to hop in one more. We can all draft one more together, and we'll get out of here. Everybody can go enjoy their Friday night and go watch Ohio State probably kick the crap out of Texas. I don't know. We're 1 for 1 on the semifinal games. Yep, exactly. Okay, so this is 11 and 12. Yeah, okay. So Baker is here. I'm trying to think if Baker actually, I know I have Ertz, but if solo Baker actually makes more sense on this team. I really should have planned ahead better, but I did not because I was not. Yeah, let's do Baker. I'm going to give myself 2 quarterbacks, though. I got to think about whether going to the. I should not have done Schultz. I was just trying to set up. I shouldn't have done Schultz. I was trying to set up Stroud in a panic. That sucked. Okay, so hold on. 1, 2. Yeah, see, now I screwed it all up. We screwed up, okay? We screwed up. Because now I didn't get my Bill. Now I didn't get my 5th Bill / Lion. I took Schultz instead. I should have taken Knox and then done like Baker, Knicks, right? But I did Knicks with these Bills. The Bills are such a hugely important piece to this team. But obviously, it would be just a, hey, Bo Nix, give me 1. He gonna do 1. I don't know if it's more important to take Stroud. Yes, Mark. This team sucks, and I'm not happy about it. Imagine drafting continually shitty teams on stream as a living for your career. Whatever. Let's do Stroud. I'm done with this team. I'm done with it. All right. We got sniped. We had some decent plans. I definitely screwed up at the end with Schultz. But nonetheless, Baker and Stroud, Cook, Demont, Amon-Ra, Khalil Shakir, Lab McConkey, Cortland Sutton, Quentin Johnston, Mark Andrews, Zach Ertz, Dalton Schultz. Let's go over to the other draft. See if we can't recover. Tough room. Let's see. Yeah, this happens, Charles says, in the overflow, and I need an AFC wild card to make the Super Bowl. Unfortunate how much that happens, like it just did to me, and got even worse than needing a wild card to. I read this as booty first, but boofy says started a draft in the 2 spot with Henry. Nice. Pulled Henry up. Goff, J-Mo, Laporta, Bateman, Demont, Likely, Flowers. That's fun. Let's see. All right. Since we said this is the cheat code episode and we talked so much about some of that tier of guys, let's see if we can't make a Gibbs work this time. Yeah. What I really, really wanted was Goff if Goff comes back at the very beginning, the whole thing changes. Obviously, it was very unlikely that he does, but that's one of those things that I do really like to do, and just deal with it when it doesn't go your way like that. Is try to push it, right? Like, so look, Goff's already gone. Do I take Mahomes like every Saquon drafter does, or do I take this Derrick Henry? This more unique Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs start. Pray that this guy doesn't want Mahomes, right? Or just build with later quarterbacks. I think you got to try. You don't have to do it every time, but I do think you should try. Now he should, if he's smart, he'll take his favorite guy here, JJ, Devonta Smith, whatever, and then get Mahomes just to piss me off, just to give me that false little sense of hope. But I think you should try and push things more frequently, especially on drafters, where it's not as big of a deal on Underdog or DraftKings. Like, you're not competing against all the other teams anyway. It doesn't really matter if somebody got a 6 start. See, that's his first draft. QB1, rude. Got to push that Mahomes so you don't give JJ to the Lamar team. But nonetheless, trying to push some things, and the 1 out of 5, 8, 10 times that it works, like, it's huge, man. It's so huge. Every once in a while, right, you're in that draft, you're like, oh my God, you're multi-tabling, tab over. Oh my God, J-Mo fell a round and a half. Can you believe it? Right? But you could have taken him ahead of ADP and just been like, I need my lion, but sometimes pushing it, it's very tricky with the quarterbacks, and you're very likely to donate this $20, right? But I mean, I just donated 20 before this. So what's the difference? Exactly. Drafting as much as some of us do, you have to push things like this to get those crazy unique combos in cumulative contests. Couldn't have said it better myself, Mossy. So what I do hate this about a particular spot here is if he go Lamar, Jefferson, okay. The poor Mahomes guy. It does become a little. I wonder if I'll do. I did Andrews on the last team. He does make sense with the. Oh my! I just realized my draft hacker ain't showing. Should I do Andrews and go ahead and build this again without the quarterback, or should I do Laporta, Derrick Henry as a one-off, and then try to do the the Texans thing? Let's do Andrews. I can't. It's so hard for me to pass on Mark Andrews, especially when I don't have Bills on the team. I can't help myself. It's a problem. Yeah, so let's just build the Lamar doesn't blow the slate up, but the Lions play the Ravens. Get a little something fun at quarterback. Again, I'm not going to do Sam Darnold. I'm going to probably try to do what I did last time, but we'll see. I just need, right. The interesting thing about this is I just need 3 weeks of non-months. I'm cool with not having Josh Allen on this team because I have the Ravens. So theoretically, they're going to knock Josh Allen out in the second round. I'm cool not having Mahomes because Mahomes is only going to get 2 games on this team. I'm obviously losing. Goff is going to get 3, but the hope is, right, you play into the Chargers beat or the Texans, but I like the Chargers part of it a little. I think the Chargers beating the Saints, starting to get a little loopy. Chargers beating the Chiefs feels a little bit more realistic, given the fact that we just saw the Texans get absolutely destroyed by the Chiefs, and the injury riddled nature of the Texans offense. But nonetheless, right, you're building for something that's like it's definitely a crazy outcome, but I just need to find a way to get a 3, because no one else in this scenario, no one besides Lamar is going to have 4 games. So if I get 3, but I have all the other Ravens, I'm accumulating, Lamar's points, but in place of Lamar, I have Gibbs. Right. So it's basically Lamar's not going nuts because I have Derrick Henry and he's scoring a bunch of the points. And I am getting the benefit of the Lamar points from Andrews and Bateman, maybe Zay later, whatever. But then I have Jahmyr Gibbs is going nuts. So it offsets that quarterback thing, because I lost, a 20-point game from Lamar, but I gained X, Y, Z, whatever. All right, let's see here. Who has gone off the board? None really of the. So I gotta get Ladd. We got Ladd supposed to be on this team. That's what the rules say. As a KC fan, the Chargers scare me a bit. Bosa always gives us problems. Yeah, Chargers are playing better right now too. Last week wasn't perfect, although they turned it on. But yeah, just Justin Herbert, right? QJ playing better. Ladd's good. Dobbins back. There's talent on the team and a good coach. So they're a little scary. They're scarier than Houston, for sure. I mean, it's still a gift for the Chiefs that's the matchup, right? Is either Houston or the Texans. Like, man, what a gift-wrapped entry into the AFC Championship game. Ridiculous. But ooh. Let's do Bucky. Bucky week 1 flex. He's not really necessary in the second round, but such is life. Let's just try it. Let's just try it. Yeah, it's interesting. I think the offense is worse. Like, it's fine, but the offense isn't anything to write home about. It's okay. The defense is just so much better. And the defense isn't like amazing. They're just definitely, just slightly improved everywhere, right? Taysom. Poor Taysom. Had a good run. Whew. Let me refresh this. This should be showing all my draft hacker loading. There we go. See, this is nuts, dude. Jalen McMillan, like Hunt. I know this guy just needs a running back and took Josh Jacobs, but man, that's crazy. Baker Mayfield's on the out. I love a username that's an email address. Love it. I'm sorry, Steven, but that's just gets me every time. That's so funny. Yeah. And I mean, what would you expect? But the guy with the username that is his email address taking Baker on the Josh Allen team. I know we shouldn't make fun. You're welcome here anytime, Steven. I'm just messing around. Did you see my team last draft? Horrible. Way worse. Absolutely horrible. So I ain't mad at you. Now the question is, I'm going to have my choice of my 2 favorite one-offs. Zay is also still here somehow. My 2 favorite one-off wide receivers. Okay, Daniels goes on the Mahomes team. Do I? That's true. Better than the Allen Lamar drafters who take Goff or Mahomes. So this is either I take Nico. Oh, that's my quarterback. Do I have? Who is this? I'm gonna take one of them against. I'm gonna let's you know what? Let's do Nico. Just gives me right. I know I'm sacrificing one of Vlad or Nico to the fantasy gods, but that also gives me one of them in the second round, and I can then like kind of backfill third round. So that'll give me Bateman and one of Vlad or Nico in that second round. Obviously, I will maybe have Bucky, and then I'll get Gibbs and Henry. So I'll still be pretty locked and loaded there in the second round. We got to start looking ahead to our Ravens Lions Super Bowl. We're pretty much filled up there already, but we need a wide receiver for sure. I mean, we may be taking another juicy one off here. I'm kind of hoping that you guys don't snipe me, bro. It's not really a snipe because I don't have claim to this person, but there's still some good options here on the board. Aaron Jones, Zay Flowers, Jesus Christ. I just can't take a running back. Terry goes, all right, on that. So now I'm going to take Zay, right? So here, why did you take both Lad and Nico? Well, we're going to layer in. They're going to pass this torch on over to Zay. So now I got my little Ravens, right? I got my Ravens Lions Super Bowl without the quarterback. Gibbs, Henry, Bateman, Zay, Andrews. Use the Zay discount. I don't need him week one anyway. I got Bateman, Lad, and Nico, and Henry and Bucky. If I needed Zay Flowers in week one, this team was fucked anyway. I got Andrews. We got a pretty solid, like locked again. If we assume Baltimore wins, this team's really good for the first 2 weeks. It's just, and if Baltimore makes the Super Bowl and Detroit makes the Super Bowl, we got a really good team for 4 weeks outside of quarterback. It's just, can we find a way to get the quarterback points that we need on this team? I don't know. But we're going to find out. Yeah, I can definitely always tell when I'm starting to get a little the combination of meds, caffeine, but then I'm like kind of my body's wearing down. It's dark as shit. It's completely dark outside it's 5:20 here. I can always tell when all that's starting to happen. Versaire says, I made fun of all the drafters this year who went Saquon, Kyron, Henry, and they likely won more money than me. Yeah, amen. We're all just having fun. We don't ever mean anything personal. I draft a lot of bad teams. You can make fun of them. I don't care. What do they say? Just win or something like that. And that being said, I didn't win this year, but we almost did. Would you consider drafting all NFC in a format like this? I don't think so, but I don't think that there's anything that's like super crazy. I just think if you hit the perfect combination, right? You hit the right teams, you get round one winners, and then you get the NFC champ. You get a full stack of the NFC Championship game. I think you would still want a little more in the Super Bowl. I guess if you had like 4 Lions, maybe if you had like 4 Lions or something like that. Okay. What quarterbacks do these guys have? Hurts and Goff. I got to see if I need to take my quarterback here and see I just screwed myself because I don't want Darnold because that would only be 2 games. All right, Herbert it is. We got a plan here. We got a plan. Doop, 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 doop. Let's see. We got a plan. I'm not going to do Ertz, I don't think, on this team, although this is triggering me. As you see, I have 38%. Zach Ertz. Nelson Aguilar. Mark says, who's the late round Buffalo, Baltimore wide receiver you're drafting? 3 guys are options late. My Stafford. My preference is Nelson Aguilar. I will take a little sprinkle of Tylan Wallace. And I am going to play some Tylan Wallace in DFS this week, to be clear. I'm hoping that it's Tylan Wallace, but Aguilar is definitely next man up for sure. I took a decent clip in Nelson Aguilar. Decent clip is again probably some hyperbole, but I have my fair shares. Let's say that. Let's keep using vague, cheesy, cliche terms. And no one knows what the fuck that means, but it sounds good. God damn. I mean, do I just keep, because they shouldn't take Darnold. Do I just keep pushing? Because I need QJ on this team. He's just more of a priority, right? That's one of those where you're like, it would be cool because I wouldn't hate having 2 quarterbacks. Obviously, I'm still wanting Darnold ultimately to lose and fail on this team. I don't have the pass catchers, and I'm betting on Jahmyr Gibbs. But at a certain point, like his projection for 2 weeks, like he could help me. He could gain me some points here in these 2 weeks. He obviously goes there to the 102. Do they have JJ? Yeah. But see, like, I know he has JJ and Addison, and Aaron Jones. So that makes sense. I kind of gifted him there. But like he has Lamar. So it's like I have all the Ravens, I guess. So he doesn't have any. He has Likely. But that's the thing is like I don't want to give somebody that value on Darnold. It's like, what's the Lamar team really gaining from that? They use the first round pick on Lamar. What are they gaining from Darnold? Like, I guess this team now wants Lamar to like put up a huge game and lose, and the Vikings go to the Super Bowl. But like, it's so much less impactful at quarterback than it is at the other positions. You know, you really just want and there's Tylan Wallace. Okay, Ertz finally goes. That would have been sweet. So what I'm gonna do here is go. Hold on, I just want to double check that he only has Goddard. He has Laporta in, so they should definitely not be taking CJ Stroud. So back-to-back Dalton Schultz teams it is here. But basically the point of this is I'm going to give myself for sure a quarterback in round 2. And whoever is playing the Chiefs, that's what we're rooting for. Right? We got our Ravens Super Bowl with Jahmyr Gibbs on the other side. We got all these really high upside one-offs, these cheat codes, if you will. Right? We have like the tight end 1, Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs, Rashad Bateman without Zay Flowers, Ladd, Nico, Zay coming back down the road, QJ. We have a loaded team. So let's just guarantee 2 quarterback games is basically what I'm saying here. And I know I'm going to have whichever stack is going into Kansas City, most likely, right? Assuming Baltimore takes care of business, which of course this team said Baltimore took care of business. So what I'm really hoping for is Baltimore against LAC. And if I get Houston, so be it. Baltimore against that, right? And then really on either side, however the Super Bowl shakes out, it's kind of okay. But we achieved our goal this time with a better version, quite frankly, of this team. Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud, Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry, Bucky Irving. Man, shoo. Running back rooms, pretty good. Rashad Bateman, Lab McConkey, Nico Collins, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston, Mark Andrews, and Dalton Schultz. Charles wants to know any Keaton Mitchell. I think I ended up with him like once when just things didn't break my way. Aguilar's gone, all that kind of stuff. But he's not. Yeah, this Peppertoni nails it. Keaton is not. I don't think even going to play. So Henry is Henry. Justice Hill is the passing down back and right, like change of pace. It's not Keaton. And even if Justice got hurt, like Keaton can't do. Justice is the passing that right, like third down back. That's not what Keaton does. Keaton is just like it's big play, explosive runner. He's not going to come in and protect Lamar. That just play Henry. So Keaton is okay because, like you said, they may design a play for him, right? In a playoff game, they may give him 2 touches and he's really explosive. He could return a kick to the house, but it's just not really what they do. And it's not really his role, right? Even if now if Henry goes down, but like, do you really want Derrick Henry to go down if you're betting on the Ravens? I don't know. Even if you don't have him, no, because now they're going to lose. Not necessarily. They have Lamar Jackson, but it hurts. It hurts their upside for sure. We got to get out of here about an hour and a half, man. Flu game season. Playoffs kick off tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. The Bills, I believe, Broncos get to a little dismantling of Sean Payton's Broncos. Again, if you have not signed up for Drafters, the site we just drafted on, promo code SPIKE, and get 5 drafts in today into the $20, and they'll give you a free one tomorrow morning. So when you wake up, you'll have a nice little playoff day present in your Drafters account to get a free entry into that tournament. It's looking like it's pretty set to overlay. Appreciate you guys. Good luck. We'll be in the Discord hanging out. Come join us. Link in the description. And see you guys. Enjoy the football. Cheers.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.